So good morning, everybody. Again, local time morning. Sorry, I know that some of you are joining from other parts of the world, and we do appreciate your participation in this. We have a real exciting panel for us now. This is session 10A. The title is about data exchanges and data marketplaces, which is a very new idea. And so we're going to get some lessons learned from some early adopters, some people who have been way out in front on this issue. My job is real easy. I'm going to introduce Didier Navez, who you probably already have heard of. He has been named a tech pioneer by the World Economic Forum, has spent multiple years working with Gartner and Forrester. He knows this industry and has dived into this particular area in a way and assembled a really fine panel for us. So Didier, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Hello. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very well.
Okay, because that was cut for a few seconds. So good morning. Thank you, Peter, for the introduction, and good afternoon to the growing number of European data leaders attending this great event. My name is Didier Navez, and I'm happy to be your host for this session on the topic of data exchange and data marketplaces. So during my introduction, I say a few words to introduce the topic of data exchange, what it is, why it's important for any organization, large, small, private or public, to build capabilities that facilitate the circulation of data across their organization, but even more importantly, outside of their organization. But I will not keep the floor very long, as we are fortunate enough to have with us an outstanding panel of executives from several organizations from all around the world: France, Spain, Japan, US, Germany, and each of them operating in very different industries. So they will share views and experience during a lively discussion. So let me introduce you our distinguished guest for this session. Bettina Goerner, Chief Data Officer at CENTOGENE, the leading biotech and diagnosis company for rare diseases. Marion Mesnage, Head of Innovation at Amadeus, the travel industry leader, whose mission is to build solutions that continuously improve the traveler's experience. Nick Morita, the CEO of the Japan Data Exchange, who will speak about the strategic move of Kanematsu, a global trading organization in Japan, engaging in the business of data trading. Sébastien Picardat, CEO of ActData, a consortium of 30 different private and public organizations that is operating the first major data exchange in the agriculture sector in France and Europe. And the panel will be expertly facilitated by IDC Research Director Lynn Schneider. And to end up the session, Nadia Hewett, project lead at the World Economic Forum, will provide us with some forward-looking views and discuss major trends in data exchange, especially government-driven initiatives in various parts of the world. What a panel. They represent very different organizations, but they're all guided by the same belief that exchanging and sharing data across companies is key for creating value for their own organizations, but more globally also for their industry, the economy, and the society in general. I can say that they're all pioneers in this new and rapidly growing data economy. So in order to kickstart the conversation, let me share with you a few definitions. Data exchange, data sharing, data trading, data marketplaces, data hubs. You've probably heard all of these terms. We could discuss and argue subtle differences between each of them, but we'll use the term data exchange because it's powerful, because it means at the same time the process of exchanging or sharing data with other organizations, and at the same time, it is the place where those exchanges can happen safely and securely. Think about stock exchanges, commodity exchanges. Data is the new asset that is increasingly traded. And just like financial transactions, data transactions will be increasingly regulated around the world. Existing regulations have initially been addressing the use of personal data. The European GDPR is in effect since 2018 and has influenced numerous other regulations around the world, such as the CCPA in California or APPI in Japan. But now the exchange of non-personal data whether they are B2B or B2G or G2B, will be regulated also, as well as the data intermediaries that provide those data exchange services. This will happen through the Future Data Governance Act and the Data Act regulations, which are currently discussed at European level. There's a big momentum right now around the exchange and sharing of data at scale in the public and private sector. The COVID-19 crisis has shown how critical facilitated access to data has been to solve complex problems. AI models need massive amounts of data to be properly trained. And one single organization has never enough with its own data to deliver the data-driven use case they want to implement. But where are those data? Who can share or license out those data? At what terms and conditions with the right level of security in a way that is respectful of privacy and complying with rules and regulations? So data exchange is the ability to address all those challenges in a structured way, at scale, and turn them into capabilities that benefit all key stakeholders involved. It is a discipline that is key to develop within any organization, and which is not a technical exercise. There's, of course, technology involved to industrialize and automate those processes, but this is also a cultural shift, and it's a governance process. Data exchange governance should be an integral part of your global data governance. And before I'm giving the floor to the panel, I'd like to summarize the main reason why an organization may want to implement formal data exchange processes in their organization and integrate them into their data and business strategy. So number one, an organization may want to streamline their data sourcing processes. It is probably already using various sources of external data acquired from specialized data vendors or other corporates, partners. But as this activity scales up, it becomes essential to organize and automate them. Number two, an organization may realize their data are valuable to others and see the potential of distributing their data as a new line of business, generating new revenue stream. And number three, an organization may want to engage directly in the new data economy and take a leading role in facilitating data exchanges between many stakeholders, clients, suppliers, partners, and even within more distant ecosystem. These new data ecosystem can be sectoral, regional, or even focusing on certain types of data, such as spatial or satellite data. These organizations are preempting strategic positions in the new ecosystem-driven, platform-based data economy. Every organization can build its own strategy around data exchange and evolve it over time. So these three scenarios are not mutually exclusive. Participants in the panel come from various horizons, sectors of activity, geographies, and they have very interesting experience to share. So Lynn, without further ado, I'm giving you the floor to facilitate this conversation. Thank you and enjoy the session.
Thank you very much, Didier. And I think that the starting point of saying folks are sourcing data, distributing data, and orchestrating ecosystems is a great way to think about the three different roles that our panelists are going to talk about. They're not mutually exclusive, but I think they'll be able to give you some of their unique perspective of how they've participated in each of those. So, of course, it makes sense to start our panel out with how they got started down this road of data monetization and data exchange. So first, I'd like to ask Bettina, who is a veteran of a very mature data monetization firm, kind of her perspective on how firms get started.
Thank you, Lynn. Hello, everybody. So at my previous company, Springer Nature, it was our core business to create data products and data services for scientists to facilitate research and development. And we did this by licensing in data and or creating data on our own, turning these into data products and services and licensing them out. And while we were a premier data producer and data commercializer, it became clear that more and more companies are data producers and are bringing this data to the outside world. So with those new data providers emerging and the new data economy getting stronger and stronger, a couple of new ways to discover and exchange data has come up. And this was, of course, very important for us and me at the time to monitor closely. So the emerging infrastructure to match supply and demand for data, to exchange data in a trustful way, to price data, to track provenance, all of these are extremely important emerging trends in the world of data exchange, which is both important for primary data producers, but also all those companies who have, who produce data by way of doing business and then are exploring data exchange as a secondary business.
And then Nick, I'd love to have you share the story of how you got started with Japan Data Exchange and trying to get that valuable asset of data out there.
Thank you, Rin. Good evening, everyone. It's actually midnight in Tokyo. Let me give you some background information. So, as Didier introduced me, I myself am the founder and CEO of the Japan Data Exchange, which is a very small early stage company established 6 years ago. But today I am also speaking on behalf of Kanematsu. So Kanematsu is a very big enterprise in Japan and one of the leading trading companies in Japan. We have signed a capital and business alliance agreement with Kanematsu 2 years ago. And together with Kanematsu's partner, Navez, 3 of us are promoting the data exchange business in Japan. So I guess most of you may not have heard of Kanematsu. So let me explain. So Kanematsu is, as I said, a global trading firm. And they were founded over 100 years ago. They have expanded over the years its business into a variety of domains. For example, food, grain, steel, materials, plant, motor vehicles, also aerospace business and electronics and devices. So now they were starting to think about next 100 years. So they were looking at the next asset to be traded, and it appeared to be data. So they think data should be one of the asset to sell and to buy with their customers. So the company therefore launched an initiative in order to propose data trading services through the implementation of data marketplace. So that is called the Japan Data Exchange, adopted the same name as my company based on the strategic alliance. So today I would speak from the point of data exchange operator. Thank you.
Nick, it's a really interesting story. A lot of companies come to me and talk about how, oh, data is this tremendously valuable asset, and how do we get it out there for a fair exchange? Now, we talked a little with Bettina about things in natural sciences. With Nick, it's more things related to some industrial equipment. To have a view on a different perspective, Marion, could you tell us why you got started at Amadeus?
So yes, so Amadeus is an IT company, and we are serving the travel industry. So our customer are airlines, airports, hotels, all these companies who have in their mission to parts of sending people from A to B, right? So, and this industry is notoriously known for being still very much working in silos. And one consequence of that is that the end user of these company services, which is the traveler, doesn't benefit from an experience which is as smooth as we would hope for. So instead of having one smooth experience as traveler, we often have one experience with our airline, one experience at the airport, one experience with the hotel, and so on and so forth. So at Amadeus, because we serve these different segments of a traveler, we think that data can be the exchange of data is needed, is required to have all these actors work much better together and improve, as a result, improve very much the experience of the traveler. So this was already our vision a few years ago. And actually, the crisis has completely exacerbated the need for more data exchange and more collaboration, because we've seen how difficult it has been for the industry to come up with a systemic answer to the crisis, the magnitude of the crisis. So I think it's a wake-up call, and it should be a wake-up call for the industry to get into this more collaborative and more exchange of data.
Thank you. And Sebastian, for yet another view on this, I know that your project got started kind of providing common information to a group of people for exchanging. Can you tell us a little more about that? How you got started?
Yeah, thanks. And clearly, ActData with an original companies founded 5 years ago by a private company, technical institutes, farmer organizations, and public bank, French public bank, in order to organize data exchange in farming industry, first of all in France and then in Europe, in order to organize the futures data space that EU want to organize on the EU level. Why it is important to organize a data space in farming industry? In France, we need to organize and to interconnect 400,000 farms with more than 80,000 partners which provide services or products to farmers in their everyday life. And what is important now, in order to organize traceability, or in order to help farmers to have less impact on environmental issues, is to help them with good data. And so that what is really important is to give farmers some data in order to organize the technical way of production, to organize and to use their machinery, and how to inform consumers about their products. And in order to organize the orchestration in farming industry in France, the data exchange platforms was created in order to expose data, open data from the technical institutes in order to provide innovations into the fields. And before speaking about monetization and private data exchange, we organized open data dissemination to the data exchange. That's why data exchange is not speaking about monetization or private data exchange, but also to have a good traceability of the open data in order to implement innovation tools for farming industry.
Great. Yeah. Now, as we've talked to the different panelists, we've had very different scale, right? What Sebastian was just sharing with tens of thousands of farmers involved. It takes a while to get that sort of traction, just like he was just talking about, providing something of value in this exchange, even if it's not necessarily monetization to start with. Now, I know Nick is running around a lot trying to get people to begin to participate. So I'm going to go around the whole panel, but start with Nick on the steps that you've taken to exchange data or propose data exchange services.
Okay, so as I said, I would speak on behalf of Kanematsu as well as my own company. Kanematsu has put all the conditions together to execute on the vision. They like to trade data on top of their existing business lines. So they need to have a data exchange platform technology and partner. So Kanematsu was looking for such partner and met Navez and entered a strategic partnership with Navez. And as a matter of fact, even Kanematsu has a platform provided by Navez. At this stage, neither data sellers nor data buyers are familiar with data trading. So we need to support each potential sellers and potential buyers according to their needs. So for example, helping to make their data sellable or tradable, or we help them to make their data catalog, data list, and classification, and also data cleansing. So those type of services are required for sellers and buyers to execute actual transaction. So as a company, Japan Data Exchange is now offering various type of data exchange consulting services and capabilities to such kind of potential sellers and buyers. So I believe those steps should be required to make something happen in data exchange. Thank you.
Well, that's definitely true, Nick, right? People need technical support.
Right.
And the idea around what needs to happen. Now, Marion, I know that you and your group have pushed a little bit more on the common pain as a way to get people started.
Well, yes, on our side, so we are still very much at the beginning of the journey, I would say, on data exchange. So the first thing we do is to look for partnerships and look for expertise into how to do that. So in particular, we have at Amadeus, we have a venture program investing in interesting startups. So one of the startups we have been working with and we have invested in is called Goerner. It's a US startup, and they're really actually positioned on what I was describing before, is how to link the dots of the traveler experience by enabling the exchange of data between two different segments. So for example, an airline and a hotel. So say you are a customer of a hotel, the Goerner is facilitating the push of so if you're flying at a certain date, then the hotel your customer of can be informed that you're flying and propose you a hotel stay in the city you're flying. So this is a type of things that can make the whole experience smoother and help travel players, in this example a hotel, acquire customer, or not customer, but push offer with a higher likelihood of conversion. So that's one example. Another example, so we are excited. We are working with CDOIQ to develop a travel and tourism hub in France to really see, I mean, because we believe that the exchange of data can be a boost for digitalization and personalization in the area of travel and tourism. So that's another exciting project we are working on.
Well, you're definitely a busy woman, Marion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to actually combine my regular theme question with something that I see coming in from our participants about, we've talked, and Didier mentioned, about data exchange, where you're bolting together right? Data from different entities, and they're exchanging for part of an ecosystem or for common good, in addition to data monetization, right? Folks who are, using a marketplace in order to sell or to buy. And with the data marketplaces, at IDC, our definition of a marketplace is that it needs to represent multiple sellers. And obviously from that point, multiple buyers. But data exchange is certainly something that folks can be using infrastructure to do that can be, one-to-one, one-to-many, et cetera. So we had a question about whether folks should build their own marketplaces, build their own exchanges. And for this, I want to turn actually to Sebastian, because you've had a lot of experience in getting an exchange up and running. So how have you gotten more people to participate? And what is it that needs to go on if I'm coming in as a relatively inexperienced or immature data organization?
Yes, what is really important when you want to organize a marketplace is to have a critical size on the market. For the market, you have sellers and buyers as you sell, or data owners and data users. Because when you want to organize a data market, you need to have enough suppliers and enough owners, users of data. In order to organize that, this is really important to organize this size. If you want to organize a data marketplace with for buying or selling data, it is really from scratch. It is really difficult to do that. We, after 3 years of data market orchestration, we only started having some data monetization on our data markets. First of all, the users, the owners of the data, export their data with open data. And with the open data, there is some new people who want to reuse open data, which subscribes to on our data market to use their open data. And when these people are on the data market, data exchange platform, they said, okay, guys, I have some new data and I want to sell or to distribute this data to my private partners because I have some specific relationships with them. For example, when you have big companies from pesticides or seeds or fertilizers who want to sell their products through cooperatives or merchants, and then the cooperatives or merchants wants to sell their product to the final users, the farmers, they said, okay, I have some private data which will be distributed to the farmers, but this data will not be monetized. So first of all, open data, then private data exchange, and after all, maybe you can start speaking about monetization. And when some people ask us if you are small companies and if you can buy or organize a data markets, maybe you can start by being subscribed or on a data market to try the market, to know if your data have some values, to have to organize the market. And when the market will be big enough, you said, okay, I have enough reusers or enough customers and enough data exchange flows on the market, and I can organize my own data market because this is really specific to an industry. This is really specific in the chain value to distribute my own data. And to finish, what is really important is to say, even if you are big companies, you are nothing if there is no ecosystem with you. That's it.
I think that's a really It's a really good point. And I will say, from a researcher's perspective who looks at data exchange and data marketplaces, they provide a variety of services to the people who participate. Like Nick was talking about, helping people to format their data, get it, ready for that interchange, but also they can provide marketing services. And, I think it's a point worth mentioning that by having marketplaces, whether those are some of the large open marketplaces, facilitated by folks like Snowflake or AWS Data Exchange, or whether they're more specialty like Ag Data Hub, or there are others out there that serve different industries, the way they benefit those data sellers and those data buyers it's a focused place to go. Right? You don't have to go out and do a bunch of Google searches, phone a friend, what have you, in order to find those data sources. Now, it's great to be building the business, but I know Bettina knows about some of the cautions in looking at data exchange. Do you want to share some of your thoughts there, Bettina?
Sure, Lynn. I just want to, emphasize the necessary fundamental for data exchange, and that is good data privacy and data governance. Now, obviously, I'm talking here as the CDO of CENTOGENE, a rare disease company where we get samples and information from patients in order to diagnose them. So they entrust us with some of their most important, most precious, and most sensitive data. And safeguarding data privacy in this context of healthcare data, life sciences data, requires a lot of attention, a lot of expertise, and the right culture. And that is essential to get data exchange in this vertical right. At the same time, 95% of the known rare diseases do not have treatment, do not have cure. So it is also in the interest of our patients that R&D collaboration is facilitated, and everybody having ever done R&D, you know that data plays a crucial role in there. So in enabling data flow, data exchange to drive discovery, to advance research and development is possible in our sector, as long as data privacy and data governance gets the appropriate attention and safeguarding.
Yeah, I mean so back to features of data marketplaces, right? In addition to marketing and the kind of purely technical data flows, managing consent, managing privacy, making sure that your data is exchanged only with those known partners, right? Because once data goes out, I was listening to part of Doug Laney's presentation yesterday, right? It's not in the whole stop using data is the new oil, but much like an oil slick, right? Once that data gets out there, it can be very difficult to clean back up. Now, part of the reason to have data exchange, it's growing overall, but I think that each person who gets involved starts to see that value increase over time, right? The more folks that are participating, the more value there is in that ecosystem. So, Marian, I think you've touched on this somewhat before, but what have you been doing specifically to grow this business?
So again, we are very much at the beginning of the journey. So we are not yet even at the growing scale. We are the kind of kickstarting these exchanges of data. So for us right now, the focus is really to identify the right use cases, the right value pockets that you can unlock by enabling these exchanges of data that do not happen today. So we start to really identify the problems where the biggest problem are felt, and where we can unlock these nuts of values. So for give you the examples I mentioned, Joe Neha, focusing on helping professionals to identify, customer leads using traveler data. Some examples of parts of the experience that are kind of broken includes disruption. So when you travel, you know that when your flight is changed or cancelled, then it breaks the whole chain of your travel organization, right? You need to reaccommodate your hotel, reaccommodate your meetings, whatever you have planned. So this is one example where you feel that enabling the actors that contribute to the whole travel would require to exchange more data in the case of a disruption event. So what we are doing is really trying to identify these relevant use cases. And two observations also about this is one, I think thinking about data exchange challenges your vision of your ecosystem and the boundaries of your ecosystem. And recently, for example, we see that our ecosystem, which we were identifying around hotel, airlines, airports, like identified people, now suddenly extend to other new partners like health, for example, because now it's key that people present a health status when they travel. But we also think about like home services. When you travel away, then your home is available and needs to be served, like protected by insurance and so on. So the notion of ecosystem, actually, when you think about exchange of data, suddenly gets extended. And finally, I really want to I concur very much with Bettina in the sense that for us the technical aspects are the least important for us at this stage, because the immediate problem that comes up are legal around consent management, commercial, how to share the value among the participants to this data exchange ecosystem, and also cultural in a sense, and how to convince people who have never done that to open their data and share their data. So that's my third, this is our third area of focus.
Yeah, and to bounce back to you, Bettina, for a second, right? You talked to me earlier about how important it is to make a product out of that data too. I think Marion talked about, and others have talked about use cases. Can you talk a little about your prior company and experience about being sure it's a product that people know how to access?
Yes, absolutely. So I was managing director for data products at Springer Nature, and I think this product management mindset is key for data. So just like any other product, any other service, you need to look at data in the same way. Who does it help to do what, in what way? What difference does it make for whom? What's the value? You need to know this in order to identify your users, make a compelling pitch. You want to understand the value appropriately so you can price things well. So I really think it's this product mindset that needs to be applied to data as well. And you see more and more companies talk about data products, both for internal analytics solution, but also for external facing data products and data services. And I think the other key success factor to emphasize is really the infrastructure element. Buying data, selling data is hard. Yeah, it's a cumbersome process with so many elements. Your customer wants to assess the data, whether it is actually helping to improve his or her machine learning model. Your customer needs to discover your data set in the first place. You want to have a secure transaction. You want to have other procurement procedures followed. So I would recommend do not go at this alone. Leverage some of the emerging infrastructure in the space. And if you combine a product mindset and leveraging technology that's out there, then you can actually focus on culture, on business potential, and the other things Marianne just mentioned.
Well, and Nick, in the past, you've mentioned what a cultural hurdle it is. Not just because it's the middle of the night in Japan right now.
Right.
But can you talk a little about, growing, but helping change people's minds and cultural thoughts about participating?
Oh, yeah. So during my 6 years experience, my lesson learned is only one thing. It's not easy. So I would say data exchange business is not easy and also was a challenge. So Yeah, it is a business, but it is also related to, as Rin said, cultural thing, and also how people think about their business. So ecosystem is a keyword today, I think. And realistically, I think we should start with a semi-private marketplace to share data among companies with which they have a traditional business relationship. So in Japan, especially for the large enterprise, they respect existing business relationship. So the data business for them should be a natural extension of existing business. So we, as an operator, we have to prepare a step-by-step process for them to decide to start their data business with their existing partners. So it is we respect our Japanese culture, so we invite our Japanese customers based on Japanese traditional business behavior. Thank you.
Well, that's a very interesting story. And I'm going to, I know we're getting a lot of questions as well. We have a couple of things we want to wrap up with the panel too, but Sebastian, I'm going to roll this into kind of your concluding remarks. We've done some research at IDC about the future of industry ecosystems and the role that shared data plays in there. That, you know, that's certainly the way a lot of folks are going. I think that you present a very interesting model of how you provided open data that was useful to all as kind of that first step to get people used to it. We had a question in the chat about incentivizing data, quote unquote, sellers, right? And sometimes it's, so you have better information. Sometimes folks really are coming together to create a saleable product, but you also talked about how to get an ecosystem to grow. So what do you think were some of the keys in getting people to participate, provide their data, and help the overall system grow?
Yes, I mean, the key point is the use case. Our colleagues says I totally agree with them. This is how why data are exchanged, why do you want to share your data, for which use, and where do data comes from which partners. And what I want to say is you have to think about data value chain. Data exchange is the hidden face of the iceberg. Nobody speaks about data exchange. Lots of people speak about data collection, data consent, because you are agreed to share your data for which use to which partners, and it is important that you, in a trustful environment, you can say, okay, I want to share this data with my cooperatives, my merchants, with the states, with the government, with NGOs, all that stuff. But after that, for which treatment, for which services? And before data exchange, you have the collection, the storage, or the consent of the data. And after data exchange, you have the treatment, the processing of the data to provide some services. And if you don't think from the beginning, by conception, by default, about collection, consent, exchange, and processing data to organize or proceed, or to organize the services to the final users, there is no, how can I say that? There is no willingness from the data owners to share their data. Data are useful if there is a services at the end. The services could be public services coming from the government. That could be a private services in order to use less pesticides or less fertilizers from the farmers. That could be a services to better use a tractor and harvesting machines or whatever, or that could be a services to inform consumers about the production, the way the product is produced on the farms. And if you want to increase the flow of data exchange of your marketplace, to have more data owners exposing their data, to have more data users to consume or reuse your data, this is only because at the end you have a great service, public or private services, to provide to the final users. So as soon as you have a great final services, you can make grow your ecosystem. You can have more and more data users and more data owners. And if you are an orchestrators of data exchange like ActData, you did your job.
Yeah, I mean, you've really gotten that virtuous cycle going at ActData Hub, and I'm sure a lot of people are asking us questions in the chat. I can hardly look at them all at once, but I will say that, you know, to our participants and our panelists, thank you so much. Anyone who wants to, you know, contact me via LinkedIn or at IDC, and I'm sure Didier feels the same. But we do have one more speaker we want to hear from. So let me just pass this back to Didier.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you to all four panelists. It was a great conversation. And I'd like to say thank you also to Nadia for participating in this discussion, Nadia Hewett from the World Economic Forum. And Nadia, I have an immediate question I want to ask you after listening to the four panelists. Is what you've heard aligned or different from what the World Economic Forum is observing more globally on the market? And by the way, say also a few words as you're joining the conversation now about yourself and the work you do at the World Economic Forum and how it relates to the topic of today.
Thank you, Didier, for having me, and also a sincere thanks to CDOIQ for your contributions, insights, and collaboration as part of the multi-stakeholder initiatives the forum leads within the space of data exchanges. Hi, everybody. So I'm based in San Francisco with the Center of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, part of the forum. And at the center, we are working with global multi-stakeholder communities to make sure that technologies are accelerated for positive impact and deployed in a way that is responsible and inclusive. And some of those projects includes work on data exchanges. So back to the question that you asked, listening to the panel, if that's very much in line with the trends that we are seeing at the World Economic Forum. Indeed, so the panel discussion really resonated. It was a great overview of the trends we observe and really reinforces just how much of a global and multi-industry development the reality of data exchanges is. It's also a very, very timely discussion. I would say in essence, a data exchange can serve as a platform to exchange data assets for the common good and help industries, countries, or regions with the transition to a data-driven economy. What we are seeing is that forward-looking leaders understand the enabling ability of technologies to accelerate the responsible use of data. So indeed, we are seeing, and I would say also collaborating with an increasing number of private sector partners, governments, civil society, and academia that are exploring how to exchange data assets, and in doing so, of course, ensure that it is rooted in ethical and responsible frameworks. Lastly, I would just say, listening to the panel, what's really important to the forum and the partners that we work with is that with data sharing, it's very important to strike a balance between optimizing data sharing with that of respecting the rights of the individual parties involved. And that includes businesses, right? So The panel reviewed areas of real importance, and if I can lift out a couple, these are areas that we need to solve for and collaborate as we embark on a journey of data exchanges in the future. And those topics that I heard was questions around access, rights to use, rewards, the need to authenticate the source. You guys were talking about discovering methods to create trust. Other things that we're working on at the forum is defining protocols for proactive consent, valuation models of data, and as what came up here at the end, cultural notions of data exchanges, right? Industry-specific nuances, cultural-specific nuances that needs to be considered. These are all, and together with others, critical issues for us to get right.
Great, Nadia. And you mentioned that there are various parties involved. You have the public sector, the corporate sectors, the citizens, the people. And could you elaborate a little bit more about the public sector? Why data exchange, data sharing, data marketplaces? Why are they so important to them? And if you could maybe give some examples of some government-driven data exchange initiative that you've been involved in.
Yes, thank you, Didier. So you heard from the panel, there was a lot of discussion about all the activity happening on the private sector side. There's also much development happening on the public sector side. Many governments are actively exploring and investing in new technology, I would say, to enable data economies. For governments, it really goes back to how do we enable a data economy. Of course, in addition to looking at the technology, they're also looking at changes, what changes are required in policies, in governance to enable data economies. For governments, it's if they want their citizens to become part of the new economy, so the digital and data economy, they have to address and accommodate some flow of data. And we see that governments want to combine data from personal, commercial, and government sources to help solve critical issues, whether these issues are health, mobility, sustainability, urban cities, smart cities, and other very important issues. They want to combine these data sets to help solve for such critical issues, and of course, while respecting rights and privacy. I would say that a data exchange or data marketplace type concept is one such instance governments are looking at to achieve all of that, right? They want to exchange data assets for the common good. A number of governments have expressed support and plans like roadmaps for proof of concept initiatives to validate the function and value of data marketplaces. And as from what we can see, the partners we're working on really making sure that it's predicated on fair, neutral, and trusted principles. You asked for some examples, Didier. There's many examples. For instance, at the forum, the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution in Japan, they launched at the end of last year a study group on the vitalization of data marketplaces. This study group includes a coalition of experts from government, private sector, academia, and so on in Japan to explore data marketplaces as a model for advancing common good. Elsewhere in the world, in Colombia, the Colombia Moonshot Data Marketplace is also one such initiative. Here we see the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Colombia, working very closely with all partners on both the public and private sector side, including academia and others, to explore a data marketplace for the common good. And again, going back to that transition to a data-driven economy.
Thank you, Nadia. And as you mentioned, there are those public sector government initiative, and should there be isolated from the corporate initiative that we've been discussing an example, and why should the private sector care about those government initiatives? What's the link between them?
Yes, important. For many of you on the call today, you would agree that advances in technology means that data exchanges are now feasible. On the technology side, it is ready to deliver trusted solutions. Examples, I work very closely on the blockchain side of things. Blockchain related new innovations and techniques can be key enablers, right, to unlock data. If you think about tokenization, smart contracts as legally binding instruments, privacy preserving techniques, automation, and so on. So public sector bringing the technology innovations, etc., that governments are investing in and looking at. I also would say that government initiatives on data exchanges for the private sector, it provides a signal, right? It provides that signal to the private sector, it provides more confidence that they should be investing in these areas. And the private sector, they can position themselves for future success now. Those who get there faster are likely going to be doing better. As we work through the issues of making this all a reality, right? Using data for better outcomes for everyone, it will require public-private sector collaboration. And I know this sometimes can be a bit controversial to say that, but it will require public-private sector collaboration to work through the aspects of commercial, technology, and policy, regulatory areas that might be or is today already central to the development of such data exchanges. The last thing, Didier, I think what is very important to add here, so allow me another minute here to just expand on the public-private piece. It's very important that understanding the potential of data, right? It requires a focus on the balance between maximizing its power and delivering the transformative change of which you've heard examples from in the panel today. But it's also important to ensure that vulnerable population groups are protected from emerging risks associated potentially from unlocking the full potential of data in a future digital economy. And to me, again, that requires public and private sector collaboration. We need to create adequate infrastructure and governance frameworks that facilitate responsible data exchange based on ethical principles. Yes.
Thank you. What a great closing point you're making. Thank you, Nadia. I think we finally we finished now with the session. We arrived at the end of our session. I want to thank all participants for this lively and rich conversation. And speaking to the audience, I hope you found it insightful and that you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed preparing and delivering it. So thank you again, and we wish you all the best for the rest of the symposium. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a great panel. You guys obviously put a lot of work into that, and I think it showed in the types of responses that we got from the audience, which was in the hundreds at this point. So fabulous work for everybody. Thank you so much. It is now time for us to adjourn for a 90-minute lunch break. We will come back here in 90 minutes with the next session, and we will get started and keep this absolutely fire hose of information going on it. So thank you again to all the panelists. Thank you, Didier, and everybody for joining.